Have you ever felt like the woman who once couldn't stop talking to you suddenly became emotionally cold without any real reason? One day she's deeply connected, laughing with you, sharing details about her day, texting first, wanting your attention. Then slowly something changes. Her energy shifts, her warmth disappears, and when you ask what's wrong, she says the most confusing sentence a man can hear: nothing. But deep down, you know something is different. One of the biggest hidden signs a woman may already be emotionally involved with someone else is emotional withdrawal. And most men completely miss it because they focus only on obvious cheating signs, secret messages, late nights, suspicious behavior. But female psychology works differently. A woman emotionally disconnects first before she physically leaves. When a woman is emotionally invested in you, she naturally wants connection. She wants to share stories, feelings, random thoughts, even pointless conversations. But when her attention starts shifting toward another man, your emotional presence begins to feel less exciting to her. Suddenly, conversations become shorter. She stops asking about your day. Your jokes no longer make her laugh the same way. Her eyes don't light up when you walk into the room. And the scary part? It happens gradually. So gradually that most men adapt to the disrespect instead of noticing it. This is where male psychology becomes dangerous. Men often assume she's just stressed, she's tired, she's going through something emotionally. And sometimes that's true. But when emotional distance becomes consistent without communication, it often means her emotional energy is being invested somewhere else. Female psychology is deeply connected to emotional stimulation. A woman doesn't emotionally disappear for no reason. If she suddenly becomes emotionally unavailable while still expecting the benefits of the relationship, there's usually a hidden shift happening beneath the surface. Watch her reactions carefully. Does she seem annoyed by your presence lately? Does she avoid deep conversations? Does she act emotionally present around other people but cold around you? That contrast matters. A woman who's emotionally checked out often becomes strangely patient and happy with others, while becoming irritated by the man she's losing attraction for. And here's the truth many men avoid hearing. Cheating rarely starts physically, it starts emotionally. The emotional affair happens first in the mind. The attention, the excitement, the emotional validation from someone new. That's the stage where most relationships are already in danger, even if nothing physical has happened yet. Another hidden clue is when she stops fighting for the relationship. Arguments disappear. Not because things improved, but because she no longer cares enough to fix them. That silence is dangerous. A woman who still loves deeply will argue, complain, express frustration, and seek emotional resolution. But a woman who's emotionally investing elsewhere becomes indifferent. She emotionally detaches while pretending everything is normal. And most men never notice until it's too late. The biggest mistake you can make is becoming needy when you sense this distance. Begging for attention pushes her even further away. Instead, observe calmly. Pay attention to patterns, not excuses, because sometimes the loudest sign of betrayal is silence. One of the most overlooked signs of cheating in female psychology is a sudden change in phone behavior. Not because the phone itself matters, but because human behavior changes when someone has something to hide. Think about it. A woman who once left her phone around you without concern suddenly starts treating it like a classified secret. She turns the screen away when texting. She takes the phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. Notifications become hidden, passwords change overnight, and every time her phone lights up, her energy shifts for a split second. Most men notice this but ignore it. Why? Because they don't want to look insecure or controlling, so they convince themselves they're overthinking. But intuition usually notices behavioral inconsistencies before logic catches up. Now understand this carefully. Privacy alone is not proof of cheating. Everyone deserves personal space. But sudden secrecy after a long period of openness is psychologically significant. That change matters. Female psychology is strongly tied to emotional attention. When a woman becomes emotionally invested in another man, the phone often becomes the bridge connecting those emotions. That's why her attachment to the device suddenly intensifies. But here's where it gets deeper. Women who are emotionally cheating often don't feel guilty at first because they justify it internally. She may tell herself, "We're just talking. He understands me better. It's harmless." And because of that emotional justification, her behavior becomes strangely defensive whenever the phone topic comes up. Notice her reactions. Does she panic slightly when you casually pick up her phone? Does she immediately ask, "Who are you texting?" whenever you smile at your own phone, almost projecting her own behavior onto you? Does she suddenly accuse you of being insecure when you ask simple questions? That defensive energy often reveals more than the actual phone itself. Psychologically, people become aggressive when they fear exposure. Instead of calmly reassuring you, they attack the question. This is called defensive projection, a common behavior when someone feels internally guilty. Another hidden sign is emotional distraction while texting. You're sitting beside her, but mentally she's somewhere else. She smiles at her screen but gives you cold responses. She replies instantly to other people while taking hours to answer your messages. And when you ask who she's talking to, she gives vague answers like, "Oh, just a friend." It's nobody. Why do you care so much? The problem isn't just the texting. The problem is the emotional energy behind it. A woman emotionally loyal to you naturally wants you to feel emotionally secure. She doesn't intentionally create confusion or secrecy. But when another man begins occupying her emotional attention, her priorities slowly change. And here's the part most men never understand. Cheating often begins with emotional excitement, not physical attraction. The secrecy itself becomes addictive, the hidden conversations, the validation, the thrill of attention from someone new. That emotional dopamine changes behavior fast, but never make the mistake of becoming obsessive, checking phones constantly, or acting paranoid. Desperation destroys your self-respect faster than betrayal itself. Instead, watch patterns calmly and objectively. Because when someone's loyalty changes, their habits change first. And sometimes the phone reveals what the mouth never will. One of the strangest signs a woman may already be emotionally involved with someone else is this: she suddenly becomes irritated by everything you do. The same habits she once found cute now annoy her. The same jokes that made her laugh now make her roll her eyes. The same personality she once loved suddenly becomes the problem, and most men don't understand why this happens. Here's the psychology behind it. When a woman emotionally shifts her attention toward another man, her brain begins comparing the emotional excitement of the new connection with the comfort and familiarity of the current relationship. And during that process, she subconsciously starts searching for reasons to emotionally justify her detachment from you. That's why she starts arguments over tiny issues, not because the issue itself matters, but because emotionally she's already pulling away. Suddenly, everything becomes your fault. You text too much. You don't text enough. You work too hard. You're not ambitious enough. You're too emotional. You're too distant. No matter what you do, it feels impossible to win. This is one of the clearest signs of emotional disconnection in female psychology. When attraction drops and emotional investment shifts elsewhere, patience disappears. Small frustrations become exaggerated because internally she's trying to convince herself that the relationship is no longer fulfilling. And here's what most men do wrong: they start chasing harder, they over-explain, they beg for understanding, they try to fix every argument immediately. But desperation only lowers attraction further. A woman who still deeply values you wants peace with you. She may disagree, she may get emotional, but she still desires emotional closeness after conflict. However, when she's emotionally invested elsewhere, arguments start feeling cold, almost empty. Pay attention to the tone. Does she seem emotionally disconnected even during serious conversations? Does she look more annoyed than hurt? Does she criticize your character instead of discussing actual problems? That difference matters. Another hidden sign is when she starts rewriting relationship history. Suddenly she says things like, "You never understood me. I was unhappy for a long time. You've changed." Even if things seemed normal just weeks earlier. Psychologically, this is emotional rewriting. When someone feels guilty about emotionally leaving a relationship, they often rewrite the past to make their current behavior feel justified. It helps reduce internal guilt. And here's something very important most men ignore. When a woman constantly creates unnecessary conflict, she may secretly want emotional distance without directly ending the relationship herself. Why? Because ending a relationship directly creates accountability, but pushing you away slowly through negativity allows her to emotionally detach while avoiding responsibility. That's why some women become unusually critical before cheating is discovered. They emotionally prepare themselves by focusing only on your flaws. Now, this doesn't mean every argument equals cheating. Real relationships naturally have stress and conflict. But when the criticism becomes constant, emotionally cold, and disconnected from logic, it often signals a deeper emotional shift, especially when paired with secrecy, emotional distance, and reduced affection. The biggest mistake you can make during this stage is losing emotional control. Anger, begging, emotional outbursts, these reactions only make you look weaker in her eyes. Instead, observe calmly. Because when someone is trying to emotionally escape a relationship, they often start building the exit long before they walk out the door. Have you ever noticed a woman suddenly putting extreme effort into her appearance, but strangely, it no longer feels connected to you? That's one of the most overlooked psychological signs something may be happening behind the scenes. Now listen carefully. Improving appearance alone does not mean cheating. People naturally evolve, gain confidence, change styles, or focus on self-care. But when dramatic appearance changes happen alongside emotional distance, secrecy, and behavioral shifts, the pattern becomes important. Female psychology is deeply connected to attention and emotional energy. When a woman becomes emotionally excited by someone new, it often reflects in her behavior before words ever reveal it. Suddenly, she buys new outfits, changes her makeup style, starts wearing perfume more often, becomes unusually concerned about looking attractive for ordinary situations. And the strange part? That extra effort no longer seems directed toward the relationship. She looks amazing going out alone, but puts minimal effort into time spent with you. That contrast matters. Another hidden clue is sudden schedule changes. She becomes busy more than usual. New routines appear out of nowhere. Late replies become normal. Her availability decreases, but her explanations stay vague. And when you ask simple questions, her answers feel oddly defensive or incomplete. Just out. With friends. Why are you asking so many questions? Notice the emotional tone. A woman who's emotionally transparent usually gives details naturally because she has nothing to mentally protect. But when someone is hiding emotional involvement elsewhere, they often become intentionally vague to avoid slipping up. Psychologically, people hiding something often reduce detail because details create risk. Another major sign is increased independence paired with emotional detachment. At first, this confuses many men because independence itself is attractive and healthy. But this situation feels different. It's not confident independence, it's emotional separation disguised as independence. She stops including you in plans, stops updating you about her life, stops seeking your opinion. It begins to feel like she's mentally building a life where you're no longer emotionally central. And here's the dangerous part. Most men respond by becoming controlling. They start interrogating, tracking, accusing, checking constantly. But female psychology reacts very negatively to desperate control. Even if your suspicions are correct, losing emotional composure destroys your position completely. A calm man observes patterns. An insecure man reacts emotionally to every fear. And emotionally reactive behavior often pushes the relationship into even more chaos. Another subtle sign is when she suddenly craves validation from the outside world much more than before. More revealing photos online, more attention-seeking behavior, more emotional energy directed towards strangers, coworkers, or social media interactions. Why? Because external validation becomes emotionally addictive when internal loyalty starts weakening. And this is important. Cheating rarely appears out of nowhere. The signs usually arrive quietly first. Behavior changes, energy changes, priorities change, and most men ignore the signs because they're emotionally attached to the version of her they remember, not the behavior happening right in front of them. The truth is painful but powerful. When someone genuinely values your presence, they naturally protect your emotional security. But when emotional investment shifts elsewhere, inconsistency becomes impossible to hide forever because eventually behavior always exposes hidden intentions. One of the most powerful signs something is wrong in a relationship is the one most men try hardest to silence: their intuition. Deep down, many men sense the change long before they ever find proof. The energy feels different, her behavior feels unfamiliar, the connection feels forced, but instead of trusting themselves, they rationalize everything away because the truth feels too painful to face. And this is where many men destroy themselves emotionally. They stay in denial because accepting reality threatens their attachment, their ego, and their vision of the relationship. So they keep searching for reassurance instead of observing patterns objectively. But here's the truth about human psychology. Your mind notices inconsistencies before your heart accepts them. That uncomfortable feeling in your chest, the emotional confusion, the sense that something is off without clear evidence, that usually comes from subconscious pattern recognition. You notice the delayed replies, the cold energy, the emotional distance, the secretiveness, the unexplained attitude changes. Individually, each sign can seem harmless, but together, they create a psychological pattern that your intuition detects long before logic fully catches up. Now, understand this carefully. Intuition alone is not proof. Jealousy and insecurity can also create false suspicions. That's why emotional control is critical. A strong man doesn't explode emotionally based on fear alone. He observes calmly, communicates clearly, and pays attention to consistent behavior over time. But the biggest mistake many men make is ignoring repeated disrespect because they're afraid of losing the relationship. So they tolerate behavior that slowly destroys their confidence. They become anxious, overattached, emotionally exhausted, constantly overthinking every message, every reaction, every silence. And ironically, the more they chase reassurance, the weaker they appear emotionally. Female psychology naturally responds to emotional strength, calmness, and self respect. When a man completely loses himself trying to hold on to someone, emotionally drifting away, the relationship often becomes even more unstable. Here's the harsh reality. Sometimes your intuition isn't warning you about cheating alone. Sometimes it's warning you that the relationship itself is no longer emotionally healthy. And that matters just as much because even if betrayal hasn't happened physically, emotional disloyalty can still destroy trust, peace, and emotional stability. So, what should a man do when he notices these signs? First, never panic emotionally. Second, stop ignoring patterns. Third, communicate directly without desperation. And finally, maintain your self respect no matter what truth you discover. Too many men lose themselves trying to keep someone who already emotionally left the relationship. Never beg for loyalty, never force attention, never destroy your peace trying to earn basic respect. Because real loyalty doesn't need constant investigation. A woman who genuinely values you protects the relationship naturally. Her actions create clarity, not confusion. Her behavior brings emotional peace, not constant anxiety. And remember this: sometimes the most important relationship lesson isn't learning how to keep someone, it's learning when to walk away with your dignity intact. Because a man who respects himself can recover from heartbreak. But a man who abandons his self respect trying to avoid heartbreak loses far more than the relationship itself.